Next, on Currents News, there are now more coronavirus deaths in Italy than anywhere else in the world.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens refusing to let those most at risk for COVID-19 go hungry. I'm Emily Druby. That's coming up.
It has been a difficult time for most of us.
And Bishop DiMarzio is turning to social media to encourage Catholics in the Brooklyn Diocese during the coronavirus crisis.
The coronavirus is not stopping Italian Catholics from celebrating St. Joseph's Day. I'm Tim Harfman. I'll tell you how their devotion is still strong and how one man's making special deliveries. That's coming up.
Plus, the Pope is leading the world in prayer tonight for an end to the emergency, and will have powerful insight on how faith can see you through the storm. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The world is at prayer tonight for an end to the coronavirus pandemic. Pope Francis from the Vatican leading people around the globe in the Rosary. And while the Holy Father implored Mary to intercede for an end to this worldwide emergency, the outbreak remains devastating in Italy tonight. The death toll there is now the largest in the world, surpassing even China. More on that in a moment. Here at home, the coronavirus is tightening its grip on New York City. The number of infections now tops 3,500. But the growing danger is not stopping Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens from coming to the rescue of seniors in need. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story from Ozone Park, Queens.
The food is prepared. The drivers are packed and ready to confront the COVID-19 crisis and deliver food to people who need it.
This belongs to you.
John KAPICA is doing his best to guarantee the Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens Home Delivered Meals program is on track.
It takes a special group of people, it does, to do this.
Normally he transports seniors, now he's dropping off meals. And in the middle of the virus outbreak, the demand is growing.
Our seniors need us, even now more than before. The ones that could get out occasionally are not going out at all now.
20 more seniors signed up for food in just 3 days. At the same time, 3 senior centers are in need of deliveries. Drivers are taking all necessary precautions. They're wearing face masks, they have gloves on, and every car comes with its own bottle of Purell.
Morning. Your food is right here. It's on the door.
Drivers are putting food at the door to cut down on personal contact, but potential exposure to the virus is still scary.
We can't see it. That's the hard part.
John says despite any risks, pitching in to help seniors is worth it.
You feel like you did something. You feel like you touched somebody, and that's mainly why I do this.
Much like a family, John and the other drivers are there to feed and check up on the seniors during the good times and the bad.
They end up in the hospital, and then you find out that you were the last one to talk to them.
It's those deep bonds that inspire John and all of the heroes keeping Meals on Wheels running during the coronavirus crisis. In Ozone Park, Queens, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Bishop DiMarzio is doing his part to combat the spread of the coronavirus, following the advice of professionals to stay home. Even though public liturgies in the diocese are on hold, he's still reaching out to the faithful from the chapel inside his residence, delivering a video message and a blessing at a special time for Catholics.
Today is the feast of St. Joseph, patron of the Universal Church, a great feast. He was the protector of Jesus and Mary, and today we ask him to be our protector also. Protect us from this virus, protect us from all the things that could surround being confined at home. Let us ask the intercession of St. Joseph, a powerful saint. We go to him, as it is said, go to Joseph. We go to him with great confidence, interceding for us that this may pass. But we must take all the precautions necessary, all the things that we're told to do. Please stay at home, especially if you have underlying conditions. Please make sure that you are following all the instructions given to you. We ask St. Joseph's intercession today for you, and I ask the blessing in the name of St. Joseph, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Bishop DiMarzio will stay in touch with the Catholics of Brooklyn and Queens on his Facebook and Twitter accounts. He is planning to stream messages several times a week. The bishop dispensed with the Sunday Mass obligation during the crisis. Still, many churches are open so parishioners can pray, providing a stronghold that offers a sense of community and companionship. At the same time, the faithful are being urged to participate in the celebration of the Eucharist on television. Watch right here on Net TV for live masses in multiple languages starting this Sunday. 7 masses are on the schedule. At 8 in the morning, the celebration will be in Korean. Then the Creole Mass will take place at 9, and the Italian liturgy will be televised at 10 o'clock. All 3 are coming to you live from the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph. At 11 a.m., a Mass in English will be held at St. James Cathedral Basilica. That will be followed by 3 additional services from St. Joseph's. The Polish Mass will be held at noon. Then at 1:30, a Spanish Mass will be shown. After that, the liturgy in Chinese will be aired at 3 p.m. 5 services will be televised live from the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph every weekday, Monday through Friday. Starting at 8 a.m., the liturgy in English will be on the air, followed by the celebration in Creole at 8:30. Mass in Spanish is going to be broadcast at 9 a.m., with a Polish liturgy following at 9:30. The faithful can see the Mass in Italian at 10 o'clock. At noon, the English Mass will be televised from St. James Cathedral Basilica. Net TV is New York's Catholic station, and you could find it on Verizon's Fios Channel 48, on Optimum's Channel 30, and on Spectrum's Channel 97. The Mass schedule is online at netny.tv. If you missed any of these times, we'll repeat them for you again at the end of this program. As we told you, the pandemic is getting worse in Italy, a lot worse. More than 3,400 people are dead. That total now surpasses China, a much larger country. American Rachel Buckles is locked down on the outskirts of Milan, and she paints a grim picture.
They've run out of space in mortuaries, so they're keeping crematoriums open 24/7, and they've had to start stacking coffins in churches while they wait to cremate people because they don't have anywhere else to put them.
Amid the misery in Italy, there is a glimmer of hope from China. Wuhan, where the outbreak erupted, is reporting no new homegrown infections. Still, worldwide, the death toll is heading toward 10,000. Unfortunately, in our country, the pandemic is likely to get worse before things improve. Many people are afraid and isolated. Joining us now is Father John Gribowich, a priest of the Diocese of Brooklyn. And Father John, the crisis seems overwhelming, but our faith can be a strong fortress in troubled times like this. How can our religion help us get through it all?
Yes, I mean, I think one thing that we have a tendency as Catholics is that we reduce our faith life to showing up for church, right? And that's been taken away from us. And so at this point, it's like, how do we understand what it means to be a Catholic apart from ritual? And while ritual is indispensable, I mean, we need to be participating in ritual, our faith doesn't stop at going to church. It actually is a place for us to then leave the church building and be able to understand what our relationship with God means throughout the rest of our week. And the Lord himself, would say, you need to go to your inner room, and it's in your inner room where you're able to experience the love of God.
Everyone's so worried about catching the virus. If somebody sneezes or coughs, everybody's, are you okay? Are you sick? Is anything wrong? Do I have to be worried now? What's the best Christian approach to something like that?
We don't know where this is going. We don't know when it's going to end. We may have all ideas as to how we think we should be responding, what we should do. But the key thing is just that when we're in these moments of thinking of all these possible scenarios and who has the virus, who doesn't, it's really about us trying to just be silent with ourselves and just come to a point of asking God, why am I allowing my mind to go all these different places when the only thing I can do is one thing at a time, right? Our mind allows us to think about the future, think about the past, but we're only able to do one thing at a time. So we have to be patient with ourselves and realizing that we can't think of all the different scenarios that could possibly happen. And I think it's very providential to be having this interview on this great feast day of St. Joseph, the husband of Mary, because he was a man who understood both contemplation and action. Here's a man who in the scriptures doesn't say a word. And he's a man who's in the midst of a massive amount of confusion. You know, this woman who was supposed to marry is now pregnant. And like, what's going on, right? But he was able to listen closely to how God was speaking to him, and then he acted accordingly, which is why he's also the patron saint of workers, too. So right now, we understand that we have to be good contemplatives in order to be good workers. And each one of us are going to be called right now to act in a certain way. And it may be simply like, okay, I need to actually stop watching the 24-hour news cycle right now. And because once I do that, I then open up my space for knowing what else is it that God wants me to do right now.
And you're using the word contemplation. So what's the difference between contemplation, meditation, praying?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think that most of us have been told in our own way to pray right now during this time. And in fact, the president had a day of prayer. And that, of course, is essential. But I think that we sometimes reduce prayer to intercessory prayer. Like we're praying for a miracle, essentially, to happen right now. Or we're praying that our leaders and scientists will figure this whole thing out. Contemplation, though, I think is actually what we can actually do right now to help our souls understanding how God is so present to us right now, because it's contemplating my disposition, contemplating why I'm thinking about the things I'm thinking about, and allowing those thoughts to simmer in a way to trickle down to knowing, okay, what is the next thing for me to do? So it's not just waiting for God to respond, it's now allowing God to respond to me and for me to respond to God. Meditation, you mentioned that word too, is usually when you have when you read a scripture and you just allow those words to somehow try to respond or try to make an impact with you. In fact, I could give all the viewers a little homework. I was thinking about Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 to 34. Matthew 6, 25 to 34. I want to make sure I have that right, because it's dependency on God. And if we're having a hard time praying, maybe just reading that, because we can understand that God is not abandoning us in this. And I would just maybe suggest a quick thing, 5 minutes, get reconnected with your breath. I know that may sound to be like a very foreign thing for Catholics, but just have deep breaths, because if there's one way to know that God is present is when we are connected to our breath, because we don't control it, we don't decide to breathe, but the very fact that God is acting in our lives and allowing us to live means that we still have purpose, we still have a reason to be, and that, to me, shows the presence of God right now in our inner being. Yes.
Father John Gribowich, a priest of the Diocese of Brooklyn, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Christine.
There's a lot more news headed your way.
To me, it's almost like Christmas Day.
The coronavirus crisis is not stopping Italian Catholics from celebrating St. Joseph's Day, but this year is different. And Pope Francis is asking for the saint's intercession as well, what he prayed for with the world watching. Plus, Italians are facing a mask shortage, but there's a new alternative made with luxury ties. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. As we heard from Bishop DiMarzio, today is the Feast of St. Joseph. Many celebrate with food, particularly Italian pastries. But amid the virus crisis, some are celebrating a little differently. Tim Harfman has the story of keeping traditions alive from Ridgewood.
Happy St. Joseph's Day.
Thank you.
Michael Adio Jr. has a strong devotion to St. Joseph, head of the Holy Family and patron of fathers. Today's the feast day of St. Joseph, usually celebrated with prayer, Italian food, and pastries.
To me, it's almost like Christmas Day.
For more than 3 decades, Michael would honor the saint by loading up his truck with pastries and going door to door, delivering sweet treats to family and friends. His checklist of people has grown over the years. Michael started with 35. Now it's over 100.
It makes people know that I care about them, and that just to make people happy.
But because of the virus crisis, he's celebrating from his office supply store in Ridgewood. Michael mailed handwritten notes with prayer cards and other religious articles inside.
If they got a card during these times, it would actually give them a little bit of faith and strength to know that we're all in it together, and no matter what, we will come back stronger, bigger, and better.
Michael orders his desserts from Chirico's pastry shop in Bushwick, Brooklyn. There's not the usual rush today. Many customers are taking precautions.
It's a little nerve-wracking. Everybody's a little worried. We're trying to stay on top of sanitizing and staying as safe as possible.
Anthony Pierdipino says his shop makes 2,000 pastries on this feast day, but this year they're only making about half. Yet customers are trickling in.
I know people are home right now and staying indoors, but this gives them a sense of normalcy and celebrating the tradition.
Dominican sister Eva Mazzetta stopped by to order 8 pastries. She says her day's not complete without them.
My family was born in Sicily, Italy, and every single year we celebrate not only with prayers, but also coming to Chirico.
A feast day celebration unlike any other, but a devotion growing even stronger.
Next year's St. Joseph's will taste a lot sweeter.
In Ridgewood, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Pope Francis spoke about why God chose St. Joseph during his daily live-streamed Mass at Casa Santa Marta.
Signore ha scelto un giusto, un uomo di fede, un uomo capace di essere uomo e anche capace di parlare con Dio, di entrare nel mistero di Dio. E questa è stata la vita di Giuseppe.
And to celebrate the feast of St. Joseph, as we mentioned earlier, the Pope invited Catholics from across the world to join him in reciting the Rosary earlier this evening for an end to the pandemic. The Holy Father is leading the world in tackling the coronavirus crisis. At the same time, the Church in the United States is getting a boost in support. That's what we're learning from a new study conducted by St. Leo University. Here to talk more about the findings is the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Christine. Good to be with you.
The new poll shows that the majority of Catholics in the U.S. have a better feeling toward the Church than a year ago. How so?
That's right. So the new numbers show almost a 5% jump in terms of confidence among U.S. Catholics, which, by some measures is marginal, but, 5 percentage points can mean a lot. So.
And what do you think explains the boost?
Well, I think part of it, Christine, has to do with the fact that, look, this time last year, the Church was still very much knee-deep in recovering from the clergy abuse scandals. It was last February that Pope Francis held a major summit at the Vatican in an effort to the Church to sort of wrestle with this collectively. So I think perhaps what we're seeing is a year later, the assessment is that while things are by no means perfect, that perhaps they're improving and on the mend. And so I think that's one aspect of it. And then generally, I think you've seen just a general shift in other stories coming out besides clergy abuse, which has allowed the Church to focus on its work in the field with, migrants, the vulnerable, those in need, which, of course, sort of changes the narrative a bit.
All right. What about Pope Francis? How's he doing in the eyes of U.S. Catholics?
Well, the Pope has always enjoyed incredibly high approval ratings ever since he was elected in 2013. He just marked his 7th year anniversary. And, the Pope has dipped by about 2.5 percentage points in terms of popularity. But he's still enjoying numbers in the high 70s, which would be the envy of almost any politician in this country or elsewhere.
New polling is also out on the Pope among British Catholics. Do they line up with American sentiments?
They do in terms of general overall approval of the Pope. What's really interesting is the British breaks it down by age groups, and the Pope enjoys almost 80% approval with Catholics that go to Mass that are under the age of 30. So among young Catholics, he's faring particularly well.
All right, Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Christine.
Still to come on Currents News, we'll repeat the schedule of live masses that'll be televised right here on Net TV. And we'll have an encouraging story from Italy, the new epicenter of the pandemic. Solidarity and creativity are breeding a new sense of hope. Italy is fighting through the pandemic that has caused so much death and devastation. Their needs are great tonight. But in solidarity and through creativity, they are tackling the outbreak. Claudia Torres has that story from Rome.
In the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, Italy is in need of an estimated 50 million masks. That's because the country doesn't make this product and it can't get it from foreign companies due to the border closures. This difficult moment has sparked creativity and a sense of solidarity in many people. One example is the Tallarico family. My father and I looked each other in the eye. We wanted to do something to help. Quarantine is hard. We're dynamic people. We wanted to move, to do something for our country. That's why we came up with this idea to raise money to help the Calabria region. They established one of the most prestigious brands of handmade ties, Tallarico. However, in recent days, its tailors have gotten together to produce masks to meet the demand and contribute to the common good. They came up with a special mask from their exclusive designs. The mask has a small pocket which allows the paper filter inside to be changed for a clean one. We made them using the leftover fabric from our ties. The result was a mask like the one I'm wearing. We're making around 10,000 to sell for €5 a piece. All the money we make will be donated. The masks are handmade by our tailors. Over 30 tailors are working on the initiative Tallarico per il Sociale e per la Calabria. With the money earned, they will purchase healthcare material needed to face the pandemic in Italy's southern region of Calabria. I'm proud of Italians in this moment. I rediscovered the solidarity of the Italian people, which I thought we had lost. Seeing people sing on their balconies and saying, "We can't see each other, but we are near," is very moving. The initiative is yet another indication that difficult moments have the power to bring people together. In this case, it's an entire nation, united under a single hope. Tutto andrà bene. Everything will be okay.
And Claudia Torres reporting from Rome is correct. Through the mercy and compassion of the Lord, everything will be okay. And finally tonight, while public masses in the Diocese of Brooklyn have been canceled, Net TV is where you can come to stay connected. Once again, here's the schedule of live masses that starts this Sunday. 7 masses are on the schedule. At 8 in the morning, the celebration will be in Korean. Then the Creole Mass will take place at 9, and the Italian liturgy will be televised at 10 o'clock. All 3 are coming to you live from the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph. At 11 a.m., a Mass in English will be held at St. James Cathedral Basilica. That will be followed by 3 additional services from St. Joseph's. The Polish Mass will be held at noon. Then at 1:30, a Spanish Mass will be shown. After that, the liturgy in Chinese will be aired at 3 p.m. 5 services will be televised live from the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph every weekday, Monday through Friday. Starting at 8 a.m., the liturgy in English will be on the air, followed by the celebration in Creole at 8:30. Mass in Spanish is going to be broadcast at 9 a.m. with a Polish liturgy following at 9:30. The faithful can see the Mass in Italian at 10 o'clock. At noon, the English Mass will be televised from St. James Cathedral Basilica. Net TV is New York's Catholic station, and you can find it on Verizon's Fios Channel 48, on Optimum's Channel 30, and on Spectrum's Channel 97. The Mass schedule is online at netny.tv. That is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.